When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
The human algorithm, where emotional inputs create unexpected outputs. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Why on earth would you ever hand over your hard-earned cash just to be terrified and scream your heads off? I mean, I'm talking horror films, haunted houses. Why does fear feel so good to some people? And why do they crave it? So much so, they're willing to pay. I'm here with Frank McAndrew, a social psychologist from Knox College, to discuss why fear sells. Frank, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
So what is going on in our brains when we're terrified? And what is going on in our brains when we're terrified and somehow also enjoy it?
Yeah, it is peculiar, isn't it? There are people and places that we would avoid in real life like the plague. And as you said, we're willing to fork over a lot of money to sort of vicariously experience these things. So it does seem odd, but I think there's a method to the madness. First of all, there are some people who like it just because they're adrenaline junkies and they like, the pounding heart and the adrenaline racing through their systems. But I think there's more to the madness than that. Evolution has programmed us to find things that are good for our survival to be irresistible. And in the safety of a movie theater or a commercial haunted house where you know things aren't real, you kind of hand yourself over to be terrified by things that in real life could kill you. So there are a couple of different reasons why I think we do this. First of all, it's a way to rehearse strategies for possible future calamities. By watching other people deal with shark attacks or serial killers, we can learn strategies. We learn from their mistakes, right? What not to do, what works. And people are really into it. If you're in a horror movie and somebody's about to open the wrong door, you can hear people in the audience going, no, don't do that.
That's me. That's me. I get yelled at by my friends in the theater because I can't shut up.
Because you're living it with them. And so what you're in a way doing is preparing yourself for situations where you might be pursued by a serial killer or attacked by a shark or whatever the thing you're watching is. Now, you're not consciously going there for that reason. You're not saying to yourself, well, I'm going to go in here and pick up a few pointers. But this push that we have, this motivation to enjoy these kinds of things, is adaptive. People who didn't prepare for those things didn't do as well when bad stuff happened. Another thing that happens in this situation, too, is you learn about yourself. You find out what you can handle and what you can't handle and what you're prepared for and what you're not prepared for. And this helps you figure out what kinds of situations you can put yourselves in or not.
This dissonance, these conflicting things that are happening in your brain when you're in the scary movie theater, it's deadly, but it's safe. I feel like there's nothing really in our ancestors' history, I'm talking like hundreds of thousands of years ago, where they could experience this rehearsal of death. Or maybe I'm wrong, but is this kind of novel? Is this a relatively new thing for humans?
Well, certainly the vividness with which we can experience it is novel. I mean, the full-blown movie experience or virtual reality kinds of things that we can do. But storytelling, I think, goes back as far as human language goes back. And people, I'm sure, were captivated by scary stories about, things that could happen to you if you wandered around in the woods late at night by yourself. Just look at things like Grimm's fairy tales, stories for children that were hundreds of years old. They're there to impart life's lessons, right? These are things you have to learn not to do because you can't afford to learn by trial and error.
So there might be some evolutionary benefit then for our fascination with fear, this rehearsing, if you will.
Absolutely. A friend of mine named Colton Scrivener just published a book called Morbidly Curious, and he refers to this urge that we have as morbid curiosity. And sometimes people are embarrassed that they like chainsaw movies and things like that, and he's trying to let people off the hook by letting them know this is part of human nature. It's part of who we are. It's perfectly okay to be attracted to things like that.
Onto the adrenaline side, is going to a scary movie like a cheaper and maybe, I don't know, safer version of bungee jumping, like that thrill-seeking side. I don't really have that. Mm-hmm. But for those who do seek thrills, this is just like a cheap, I don't know how much a movie ticket is these days, but is it sort of like that? You could just thrill-seeking.
Yeah, it's exactly like that. It's thrill-seeking. But it's thrill-seeking if you're the kind of person who likes the rush. There are people who don't like that, and they don't like horror movies. I like horror movies, but I don't get to see them very often because my wife doesn't like horror movies. And we, of course, go to movies that she likes to go to. And so I don't see that, that many of them. And sometimes people have these experiences, commercial haunted houses and horror movies, unwillingly. They have a romantic partner or they have a group of friends that are putting pressure on them to go. So just because somebody is going to these things doesn't necessarily mean they enjoy it. They can be there for all kinds of other reasons.
What about the social factors? Is there something to be said to going to a scary movie, a haunted house together? If I use your telling stories version from our history, maybe crowding around the campfire together, is there something to be said around the bond you form when you experience something like that in a group?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because that absolutely is going on. Research has shown that when you're experiencing high levels of arousal, it intensifies the attachment you have to the people that you are with at the time. Look at all of the movies that you've seen in your life where it's usually a man and a woman who meet each other and at first don't like each other very much, but they go through these harrowing experiences, defying death, escaping from bad guys, and this adrenaline gets transferred to feelings of attraction to this other person. The saying might be adrenaline makes the heart grow fonder. So if you are sitting in the scary movie or going through the haunted house with these people, all of you have this heightened state of arousal that then gets translated into a bond between you. So yes, sitting around the campfire getting scared by the stories is exactly the same experience we're seeking out in the movies.
It's such a cheap, easy way to have shared adversity experiences with someone and bond with them rather than having to work in the same workplace for 10 years and deal with a bunch of stuff from your boss,
Absolutely. But yeah, common suffering with the boss produces the same effect.
But now you only have to sit through a terrifying movie for an hour and a half and tolerate my screaming in the seat. Is there like a masochism side to this? Is there like a desire to self-torture that some people are attracted to scary stuff for? I don't think so. I mean, I'm not saying there isn't the unusual person out there who feels bad about themselves and they need to punish themselves and I deserve to terrify myself because I'm a bad person. I mean, I'm not saying that there isn't such a person out there, but I don't think that's typically part of what most people are after. As someone who studies this stuff, researches about this stuff, thinks about it, is the quality of horror movies, the realistic nature of them, VR, like how it's so graphic these days, does that concern you at all or no?
Not really. No, I don't. No, it doesn't.
It doesn't concern me either. I feel like the same argument about things being too graphic has played over and over for the last 100 years. Whether it was the pixelated video games to now extremely graphic ones, I think that's just a repetitive cycle. That's my opinion.
Yeah, and people have always worried about whether we're talking about sex or violence. There's something about if it's vivid, it's bad, but if it's not vivid, then it's okay. But your imagination is the thing that's running wild. And in some ways, making it less vivid gives more leeway to your imagination to make the thing even worse. So who knows?
The sort of confidence you get from going through this adversity, enjoying being scared so you can safely deal with a scary situation. If there's some benefit, is there anything you'd recommend to people who don't like scary stuff to try to get them into it?
Well, baby steps, right? So instead of going to a graphic, horrifying movie or a really over-the-top haunted house, just read a short story that's a little bit frightening. And you can put the book down whenever you want, and maybe you can get yourself there eventually.
Frank, I have really enjoyed this chat. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Frank McAndrew is a social psychologist from Knox College.